Hello, hello. Let's give it a few more seconds until more people join. In the meantime, feel free to let us know where you're joining from in the chat. My name is Margaret. I'm part of the Metabase team. I'm joining today from Lisbon, Portugal.
Hello, and I'm Candice. I'm joining from London. I'm from 173 Tech, a partner of Metabase.
Okay, so let's start. Welcome to our event. Today we're going to be talking about how to prevent churn with retention analysis in Metabase. I'm welcoming our panelist, Candice Ren. She's a founder of 173 Tech, an analytics agency and Metabase expert as well. 173 Tech helped a lot of companies to build robust data infrastructures and also succeed with Metabase and adopt Metabase the best possible ways. So before we begin, I just wanted to go through a few technical details that are important. So first of all, if you have any questions to Candice or to me, feel free to post them in the questions tab. You will find it in the right bottom corner of your screen. Also, if you have any other things that you want to share with us, feel free to post them in chat. By the way, I see people joining from really different locations from the US, from California, from France, from Brazil, from Israel. That's amazing. Welcome all. And with that, I think I'm going to pass the word to Candice. Welcome, Candice, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much, Margaret. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. A quick word about myself. Like Margaret mentioned, I'm the co-founder of 173 Tech. We are an analytics agency helping companies turn data into value. We've been delivering insights with Metabase since 2019. I was previously the head of analytics at Bumble, helping the app build analytics from day zero to hundreds of millions of users, finding love online, and also the 3 billion exit in 2019. So very glad to be here. This is the second webinar we're hosting with Metabase, a previous one on SaaS metrics. So if you're interested, check it out on the Metabase website. So today we'll be talking about retention analysis. So first of all, what is it? So retention analysis is really an evaluation of the health of a business. And the way we evaluating the health is over the ability to bring customers back. So this is a good measure of the loyalty, their engagement, and has the lifetime value you can expect from your customer base. There are different types of retention analysis. So we want to cover three main topics. So one is the activity retention. So this is evaluating whether people are coming back to your platform. So if you're an app, so this could be anyone logging on, performing a range of activities. If you are, if you're a bit further into your product development journey, you might want to look at feature retention. So coupled with feature adoptions, you want to look at the stickiness. You want to look at are people coming back and using the feature, for example. If you are running a subscription model, you want to be evaluating whether the subscriptions are continuing. So on average, how long people are retaining on your subscription model. So this is a range of things you can think about what you want to look at in terms of retention. And when doing retention analysis, there are generally four components you should think about. First of all is a definition of a cohort. So a cohort, again, if you're in an app or a SaaS business, this could be a group of users by their registration date or by the date they sign up to your platform. If you are an e-commerce business, you could cohort by the first purchase date. So a cohort is basically a group of users. You want to evaluate their retention behavior collectively over time. The second thing you want to think about is the retention window. So, typically this could be on a monthly basis, especially if you have a monthly subscription. But if you're an app, you might want to look into daily activity retention. So it's really depending on your business model and the nature of your product. And the third thing is the retention metric. So we talked about before, there's different type of analysis. So you really want to define clearly what retention means to you. So what judgment, for example, if you're looking at activity retention, does it mean people just simply performing anything on your app, or you might be looking at a set of core activities, and anyone performing any of them will be deemed as retained. Subscription, again, this could be payment retention, or it could be anyone who hasn't canceled the subscription during the retention window. So you want to be very clear at defining the retention metric. And the fourth component will be the breakdown. So the breakdown is how you want to slice and dice the data. So if you're looking at the retention of a cohort of users, you might want to compare them. So if you're noticing a jump or a drop in terms of retention, you want to drill down, right? So this could be different countries, it could be different platforms, or let's say if you have an iPhone app, you have an Android app, so you want to compare the behavior in between. There's many other things you can think about. Again, really depending on your business, but think about how you want to break down your retention analysis. So, as the topic suggests, so preventing churn with retention analysis. So how does retention relate to churn? On the very simple level, retention really is just the opposite of churn. So people who hasn't churned, they are retained. And we usually recommend companies to look into and focus on retention first. And the reason being is a lot easier and more effective to keep users engaged and coming back, instead of, after they already decided to leave you, trying to bring them back, reactivating them through different methods. So keep in mind, retention is gold when it comes to churn prevention. So what role does it play in product management? So many of you joining us here might be product managers. So retention is really important when looking at the product market fit. And as you grow, it could be a feature market fit. So if you're releasing a product or releasing a feature, you want to have a look at, is the market responding? So people uptaking on the product, uptaking on the feature, they keep using it. That's a good judgment of whether you have a fit in the market. And when you get into the feature development side, this is really good at helping you define your product development effort. So really looking at what feature is driving the retention out there, so you can focus and applying your effort where it really matters to your market. And next is a really good way to highlight the potential risks and opportunities. So when you're looking at your retention cohort, we'll have an example later, but if you're seeing a sudden drop, for example, at the retention rate, that's a moment to take, really zoom into your data. It will help you surface potential risks. So it could be ranging from a bug you didn't realize within your product. It could be a competitor move. It could also be an underlying shift in the market. And that's on the risk side. And similarly to opportunities, if you see an increase in retention, it's good to align with your product roadmap, having a look at what happened, looking at which market, for example. We talked about the breakdowns of retention, looking at where that opportunity lies. So retention analysis can help you identify that. And ultimately, as we discussed before, retention, paying attention to it, is really helping you to make sure people come back, and as such, increasing the loyalty of your customer, so they will be with you for longer and more over time, and increasing the lifetime value of your customer base. We wanted to throw in a bonus points here, how to go, another step up. So far, what we talked about in terms of retention is very binary, right? We talked about whether people come back or not. So it's the rate of retention, but you really want to step up and look at, okay, people are coming back, but are they doing more? So you're trying to get a sense of the level of engagement. So you want people to come back, and you want people to do more of something they love about your product. So what we help a lot of our clients do is model the activity scoring. So essentially what it does is a collection. So it's an aggregation of all types of activities a user perform within a period of time. So you assign a numerical level on the user level, and keep in mind, not all activities are equal. So for example, if you are a social media platform, let's take LinkedIn for example, liking a post from someone is very different type of activity from writing an article and publishing it on LinkedIn. So what you want to do here is assign weight to different type of activities, and once you do so, and making sure you can calculate this numerical value, so this activity score on the user level. And when you're looking at the retention, so it's not just percentage users retained, but you can start looking at the activity score retention over time. Now the moment you've all been waiting for is how to build retention analysis in Metabase. So we're breaking it down into different steps. So first of all, you want to get the data, right? You want to calculate the retention numbers. And second of all, you want to materialize that number so you can easily query that within Metabase. And finally, and I would argue is probably the more important part, is telling a story about retention within the Metabase. So the dashboarding will show you that with examples. So first of all, let me take you into the first step, calculating retention. You can all see this page, okay? Yeah. Just first of all, so you might be wondering why we say 173 tech on this view. So we're on the Metabase Pro version. Among many other features, you can white label and use your own color plate. So here I have a retention SQL question. So when doing a retention query, by breaking it down to 3 parts. So first you have 2 CTEs. The first one is calculating the cohort size. So that is how many people are within that cohort. And then the second part, what I called in the red here, is calculating the number of users that are active during the retention window. And the last part is putting everything together to calculate the retention over time. We will be sharing this script after this webinar, so don't worry about copy and pasting this code. You have that, so you can work off it with your own tables. So just zooming into the 3 parts. So the first part is looking at the cohort size. We have some sample data here on a mock business called 173 Blitz. This is a meditation app. It has a subscription model, so you need a membership to listen to its audios. So first part, where I'm looking at the cohort size, I'm going to switch to this tab inside instead. So what I've done here, I've copy pasted the bulk of the first part of the CTE to give you a taste of how the resulting table look like. So first of all, remember the 4 components we talk about, the cohort. So for this particular business, we're cohort on the first day of the user joining the trial. So they start with the trial. So that's the first day they become a member. So we're looking at the cohort month, and we're calculating the number of memberships. So you should get the resulting table looking at what I'm showing here at the bottom. So on the monthly level, how many members has joined. So this is the first part, the cohort size. And then if you remember here, let me go back to this tab. The second bit, we're going to look at how many people are retained as active users. So let me show you the activation bit. So the second bit we're looking at, I'm peeling it separately so as to show you the resulting tables. So first of all, the cohort, which is again based on when they started their trial. So that's the cohort month you want to define. And second of all, remember the second component we talked about, the retention window. So this is where, so for this particular app, we wanted to do a monthly retention. And on the month, we defined it as 30 days since they started their trial. So your business might look at it differently. It might be a calendar month. It might be a 28-day window. It could be relating to a lot of different factors. It could be how subscriptions are rebuilt. But, make sure you define that clearly. And third of all, and very importantly, is the retention metrics. So in this particular app, there's one type of activities people can do is listening to audios. So we have a fact table, which is app listenings. So we're looking at how many people appear in this table. That is a measurement of activity for 173 Blitz. So once you run this table, you could see the results. So you have the cohort starting. So this is a particular cohort you look at going through over time. So the month since they started, how many they will retain. So this is the table of the results you will get. And now the third step, which is putting everything together. So calculating the retention rate. So the two tables we saw before, the next step will be to calculating the percentage retention. So again, we have the cohort month, which is again judged by the date they started their trial. And then we're looking at the retention window, which is a monthly 30-day window since the moment they joined. And then we're calculating the percentage retained. So we're looking at the table that we're generating the number of active users, which we deem as retained users, and we're dividing that by the number of members that started within that cohort month. And you will have, let me show you the resulting table. So resulting table you will have, so the cohort month, again, the month since starting, and the percentage retained. So the first type of visualization, I guess, is probably the most common, which is a heat map. So what I'm showing here, so a few things to, apologies, let me switch back to a few things to notice here. So what I'm doing here is basically a pivot table. So you want to pivot on the month since, so that's going sideways. So the month since they're starting their membership, and then the cell that you are representing is a percentage retained. So you want to apply a conditional formatting. Again, a few things to note here. It's good to apply a color range, so it gives you a very good visual cue on how things are, potentially improving or dropping. Right, and the range, you want to start by the smallest value in this column being the number of percentage retained, and then the largest value within this column as well. And the visualization we're using is a table here, and make sure you use a pivot table as we mentioned. So this is the, let me close this view. So going back to the SQL, so if this is the retention view you want your team to use, there's a few things you can do. Adding in parameters, so variables as defined. I've given some examples, so I use two here. So the date ranges for one, and the acquisition source. So for example, you might want to examine how different marketing efforts are impacting the quality of your user. So hence you want to break down your user base by the acquisition source. For example, if I select Facebook here, and then I can rerun this analysis, and then you get the retention view from users acquired by Facebook. So this is the first part on getting the results. So once you have that, what you can do is, let me save this table. And what you can do here, a really good features that's introduced recently is turning it into a model here. So once you turn this into a model, you can use it as a building block into other reportings, other I guess queries or dashboards. So it's a very good way to get your team to test it out. So especially during the phase that you are still trying to define what retention mean to your business. So a different team can use this table, look at it, and tweaking it very easily within Metabase. And once you finalize, how you want to define retention, we always recommend. Let me share this one. We would recommend materialize it within your data warehouse, so making it part of your ETL process. The reason being, it would improve performance because this calculation that we showed before will now be done on, let's say, a daily level if your ETL is run on a daily schedule. So it will be materialized during that run. So every time any team members are running the query, it is hitting that materialized resulting table instead of running directly to your backend database. So that's one, improving performance. And relating to that note, it reduces the cost on your database data warehouse. And then finally, it's a good way to centralize all the logic and into your own analytics repo. So you have a good way to make sure your retention view is consistent across everywhere. Everyone's querying the same definition. So you have version control going forward if you wanted to define retention in a different way as you progress. And then the next step will be telling the story with what we just pulled with the numbers. So let me take you into a dashboard. So this is the dashboard as part of our previous webinar where we looked at a SaaS model. So here again, remember the fourth component we talked about, the breakdown of your retention analysis. So this is a good thing to brainstorm within the team, what matters within the business. For example, maybe different type of plan you want to break down to. So take Metabase, for example, you might want to break down your retention view by starter, pro, or enterprise, looking at how customers are retained between these three different type of plans. You can break it down by country, marketing source we looked at before. You might have different ideal customer profile types. You want to break it down in that way as well. So this is a few things to think about. And once you do, you can write that into your query that will be materialized within your ETL process. Effectively, that would just be another group by clause within your SQL calculation. So we looked at a heat map representation before. So this is a good way to look at just giving a visual view. So going down, so this is all the different cohorts. You can, depending on how you want to see your data, you might want to sort descending by the time, and then sideways we're looking at the retention window, so how people are performing in their month of registration, like everyone is active, and then first month you want to look at how many people dropped off, how many people come back, and going forward similarly. So by telling a story, there's lots of other things you can do here. So if the retention analysis, you might want to add into things like the cohort size. So effectively, how many people joined over time to couple with your retention analysis. You might also want to add a visualization about your product development plan. So if you have new feature analysis, you have feature released, you might want to give a timeline. So for example, if you look at, okay, the first month there's a drop here, why, then there's other information that you can couple and give a bit more context of the story you're representing here. But for the purpose of this section, we want to show you a few other ways of looking at retention. So in addition to the heat map, we have this line view. So what we're looking at here is visualizing every cohort going through the retention window. So ideally, if I look at December, so you will have, the first bit, and versus January, you have the whole 12 months of retention data. So what ideally, if you're developing a great product people love, you would expect the newer cohort to have a much higher retention rate going through, going through the time. And it's a really good way to highlight any sudden drops or increases. For example, as we saw before, the first month, for the first cohort, there is a bit of an anomaly here. So it's a really good way to say, okay, there is something we need to action upon. There's something not going quite right here. And then the third one we wanted to show you is another way of looking at retention. So again, depending on your business model and the maturity of your product, there might be certain key moments of retention that you want to pay particular interest. So most of the apps or subscription products, you will find the drop-off being the first few points. So month 1, month 2, month 3 in this case, we deemed important for this particular app. But for your particular business model, you might have a different retention moment. For example, if you have a first 3 months onboarding model, so no one will be dropping within that period, then your key moment of retention might be month 4. And also if you are an app, then you might want to look at daily retention. Maybe day 1 is the really important moment to look at. So it's really depending on your business model. You can switch it depending on who you are and what you decide. But once you have, is a really good way to visualize. So we have 3 key retentions here. So month 1 retention, month 2 retention, and month 3. And again, if it's a product that's improving, you would expect each line to be trending upwards. So meaning that newer cohorts are retained better within the first month, and month 2 and month 3. So these are the 3 types of retention visualizations. Hopefully it gives you a flavor of what you can do. And then, once you have this visualization, you can put them into a dashboard and share it with your team. And that will be, it from me talking. Very open to questions. Thank you again for joining me and listening to this bit. Was there any questions?
Thank you very much, Candice. Before we jump to questions, first of all, if you have questions, please leave them in the questions tab. But before you do, I'm sending in the chat a small link for a very small survey. If you can share your feedback on how, was this event helpful for you, please do. I will be very, very grateful. And I'm moving to the questions. So far, I have one question from Anemiak Dehan. The question is, can the native query builder in Metabase support this calculations? So curious, Candice, if you have tried that instead of SQL.
It is quite difficult. So we looked at the 3 different steps. I guess the one way I can think of is turning each steps into a model, right? So each base step we looked at. Let me go back to here. So the base steps, you could build that you don't have to use a SQL question. So this part, you can use a drag and drop with a native SQL builder. And once you have the 2 components, so you have 2 base table, a cohort size, and the number of users retained, and then you can merge the 2 tables. So that's one way you can build it natively without writing the SQL. But if you have team that could build a SQL, it's a lot easier. And also, I forgot to mention before, this mock database is sitting on BigQuery, so the syntax might be different when you're applying. If you want to copy and paste the code that we'll be sharing later.
Thank you, Candice. Thanks. Another question, how do you activate these insights outside of dashboards?
That's a very good question. So I guess this is probably coming from a product manager, and so this insights, like there's a lot of things that you can look into at the back of it. So the first thing is always democratizing the dashboards, right? So everyone, your product team having access. So looking at where is it dropping, where is it improving. The one thing you could do also with Metabase is having alerts. So, we looked at a view that is the key moments of retention. Let's say month one retention is really important to you. So you want to have some information or alert. Say, for example, any cohort, the month one retention is dropping, you want to send a notification immediately to your product team. This is something Metabase has a feature inbuilt. So you can send a alert to your Slack channel, you can send alert to your by email. So this is something you can keep your product management team aware of something dropping, or it could be improving. So something exploding, the retention going 10% above the norm. So that this is really good. And the other thing what you can do at the back of that, depending on what you mean by data activation. So, if you are thinking about sending the data back to different system, so there are things you could do as well. So, when you're looking at retentions, there are other models you can start building. For example, you can start predicting the LTV of a user. And then once you have those informations, then you can send those data back into, for example, your CRM system. And from there on, you want to start grouping them and sending out information. So for example, we had a month one on a particular cohort that had a sudden drop. Let's take that as an example. So that's a group of user, right? And if you find out the reason, that could be a particular bug that you didn't realize, then you can automate an email to this group of users to say, we're really sorry, there was a bug. We noticed, you might have some difficulties logging in. We have since rectified this problem. You might give them a slight incentive to come back. It's really up to you. But this information you can automate back to your go-to-market platforms. If this is something you're interested in, please feel free to reach out to us. This is something we do a lot. So basically have the insight going back to your third-party systems.
Thank you, Candice. And another question from Manan, and it's more product related. When are you going to add the typecast function in custom column feature? I'm not sure I know the answer to that question because I'm not the part of the product team, but I have a recommendation. Join our release related event. It's going to happen in about a month. So just look out for the announcements, and our product team will be there. They'll be presenting some new features that are released in the latest Metabase, and you're welcome to ask any product related questions there too. And then another question comes from Andrea. Thanks for the talk. Nice perspective. Would it make sense for you to add the absolute numbers in the first column together with the cohort analysis? I'm saying this because it may also bring insights if you have less users on a specific month.
Yeah. That's a very good point. So basically, showing the cohort size on the first column, that is, I mentioned, as part of telling the story, you might want to start a visualization, add another chart to say, how many users joined during that period of time is definitely a very good contextual piece of information. Just on a technical and practical level, adding in that first column, just mixing percentages and the first column of cohort size can be quite difficult, but you can tie into your SQL manipulations. But an easier way is probably just having another visualization to show the evolution of number of new users joining over time. But yeah, it's a very good point. It's part of the storytelling, yes.
Another question comes from Jacob. What other visuals do you find most useful to go with the retention visual in the same dashboard?
So it depending on the context, depending on what is the key focus of the product. So the heat map is definitely number one. So that's the most visual way of looking at everyone, basically. And then in addition to that, there's these two other views we've shown. If you have a master dashboard, it's really good to add in the key retention, so what we deem important, month 1, month 2, month 3. We've seen mobile apps, if you have like a dating app or a chat app, then the first day retention is really important. Then you might just want a simple view to have a line chart to say daily retention on a daily level, who joined, are they retained on day 1 or not. So it's really depending on what the product team is focusing on at the point in time, and coupled with a lot of contextual data, like Andrea asked before, the cohort size, for example.
Thank you, Candice. I think that's all questions related to the topic. If you have any more, please share them now. And this webinar is recorded, so we're gonna publish it, so you always will have the access. As well, we're gonna be sharing the SQL snippet Candice was talking about, so don't worry about that. Thank you everyone for visiting. I don't see any new questions. Thank you very much, Candice, for sharing this.
Thank you, Margaret, and thank you, Metabase, for hosting this session. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We are available online. If you want to chat, just please feel free to reach out, and we'll be sharing the snippet after as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Candice. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you. Bye for now.